The worst airline trends in 2022. I'm Chris. This is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, entertaining, and fellow explorers. This year, I and OC Girl and the Traveling Princess have been traveling. Again, we've resumed traveling. We've taken 3 round-trip flights in the last 4 or 5 months or so, and so we wanted to share some of our experiences and some of the negative trends that we see in airlines, things that they're implementing for a number of reasons that we'll talk through here, but things that are ultimately going to make your trips more expensive and probably less enjoyable, and some things for you to watch out for on different airlines when you're booking your tickets. Now, not everything's bad. I'm going to share 5 of the best things that I see coming up in airlines in 2022. And so the first negative trend in airlines this year is reduced food and onboard beverage service, kind of all together. So the 3 airlines that we flew for direct data point, Air Canada, United, and Southwest, though I've also researched a whole bunch of other airlines, and we see this is something really across the board. Airlines have reduced their food offerings. Things are prepackaged where perhaps they might have been plated before. Drinks are less. In fact, on Southwest Airlines, it was so strange. They still offer drinks in flight, but less drinks. Not no drinks, not like you can't drink, but before they used to have about 20 drink selections. Now they have about 8. And one of the things I've always enjoyed drinking on airplanes, I like apple juice, but no apple juice on Southwest Airlines because of the reduced service. It's kind of annoying because I like my apple juice. When we flew United Airlines a couple months ago to Vancouver, Canada, the buy on board options were quite lame. They were all cold options, none of the hot options, because apparently ovens give you COVID. That's what I've heard. We can't use the ovens because that must spread the pandemic. I'm not sure what the thinking is behind no hot options on flights, but that is a trend across a number of different airlines. And so you might be thinking, Chris, are you complaining about the airlines? Is the airline's fault? Whose fault is this? Well, let me tell you. On American Airlines recently, they actually increased their services. They brought back hot food, they brought back drink service, but the flight attendant union fought back and said, that's too much service. We don't want to do that much. And so the recent cuts that American Airlines has made based on pressure from the union is American Airlines on international flights is going to be offering the beverage service in conjunction with the meal cart. So you can think about this. You've been on planes before. Usually on long international flights, they push down a drink cart. Then they push down the food carts 10 minutes later. Then they push down another drink cart because they figure you might be thirsty after you're eating that food. No longer those 2 drink carts on American. You'll just get both of them at the same time. And on short flights that aren't international but are still long, so these are their domestic flights more than 1,500 miles in length or duration, they are eliminating the second beverage service because heaven forbid if you might get thirsty and want a second glass of water in your 6-hour transcontinental flight, no second glass of water for you. And I'm not really sure what the thinking on that is because I feel like the flight attendants are there, they're on the plane. I don't know why they can't push a second drink cart or really what the rationale is for this, but these reduced services are really driven by the unions and perhaps a little bit by the availability of, I don't know, maybe Southwest Airlines can't get apple juice for all I know. But this is something that you're going to see going back and forth in 2022 as the airlines try to restore it. Alaska Airlines, they brought back real food, real hot food in the summer 2021. And in January 2022, they rolled it back for cold food only. But you might think, Chris, it's not a huge problem. I'll just buy my food in the airport and bring it on board with me. That'd be nice if a lot of the things in the airport were open and you could buy things there. We'll talk more about that as one of the negative trends too. But one of the things you might want to look out for if you're flying United Airlines, is rolling out their pre-order service to more flights. And so if you're on one of these United flights, then from the United website or from the United mobile app, you can actually select what you want to buy on board, or you can select your meals 24 hours before your flight so that you're actually guaranteed that thing you want to eat for the flight. I think that's kind of a neat way of getting around this whole thing of we don't have the things you want or we don't know how many to put on there. Just tell me what you want and you'll put it on there. Now, the second worst trend to airlines in 2022 is not snakes on the plane, but in fact insects on the plane. And while I thought this was an interesting title, it is not just a clickbait title. It is in fact a trend. When I was researching this video, I went to ye old Google and searched for airline trends in 2022. And one of the articles I stumbled across was an article written by an insurance company that was talking about insurance claim trends for airlines. And one of the ones they cited increasing last year and this year are claims related to pests such as insects on board planes. Why does the pandemic bring insects on planes? Because lots of planes have not been flying and they've been put in storage. They've been parked at various airports, places, and then they get those planes out again that haven't flown for a year and 18 months. And guess who has moved into those planes? That's right, insects. Now, the ones you'd be worried about in the cabin are certainly bed bugs, not really cockroaches, but maybe even more worrisome than the insects in the passenger compartment are, in fact, the insects that get into the vital sensors. So actually something that happened last year, because there's an article about it, I can reference this one. I'm sure it's happened more than just this. But on June 9th and 11th of last year, so 2021, at London Heathrow, British Airways, 3 of the planes were plagued by bug infestations that jammed their sensors, and actually the planes had to abort their takeoffs because of the bugs that got in the systems. And American Airlines, in October of last year, they took an 8-year-old Boeing 777 out of their Tulsa maintenance facility for insect abatement. And they said, this thing's got pests in it. Let's send it there, get the pests out. And then it flew a single flight, and then they send it back there again because they didn't get all the insects about. So maybe bring a can of bug spray for your next flight in 2022. The third worst trend for air travel in 2022, this isn't on the planes, this is in the airport. Not everything is peachy in airports either. Many airport businesses are closed or have way shorter hours or are just closed for good. Now, one of my local hometown airports that I fly out of is John Wayne Orange County Airport, just about 10 miles from Disneyland. And I flew out of there when I took Southwest Airlines a few weeks ago. It was really sad at the airport. John Wayne Airport used to have this really neat food court that had like 3 or 4 different eateries. All of them closed, all of them out of business because people just haven't been in the airport wanting to eat food so much. When we flew through Vancouver right here, the stores weren't out of business, but boy, were they closed. This is like, you look at the terminal here in Vancouver and it's empty, and that's why they're closed, because there's nobody there. When we were returning to the U.S., we had like a 1 o'clock flight, and so you go, hey, I want to get some snacks before my flight. And in the departure to the U.S. terminal, there were only 3 things open. There was a Tim Hortons, a Starbucks, and there was like some sports cafe or something like that. Not really great things to get to-go food to bring on the plane with you, unless you want some donuts or some really lame sandwiches for Starbucks. That being said, if you are planning to travel here in 2022 and you want to eat on the plane and you don't get to pre-order, don't necessarily plan to get your food at the airport. I would recommend you actually get your food at the local market or something like that before you get to the airport to make sure you actually have something tasty that you can eat on board. The 5th worst trend for airlines, actually no, I skipped one. The 4th worst trend for airlines is difficulty getting refunds for canceled flights. With all the things that are happening in the world right now, with people getting sick, with staff strikes, with contract renegotiations, there are a lot of flights getting canceled, and the airlines are making it really difficult to get your money back. This is actually something I've heard from a lot of you where you say, Chris, this airline canceled my flight. They're only offering me credit. What should I do? If you've booked a flight and you haven't gone anywhere yet and they cancel it, you should be able to get your money back. Because it's kind of like if you went to McDonald's and you ordered a Big Mac and you paid for it, and then a minute later they came back and said, yeah, we actually don't have any Big Macs in today. We can give you a chicken sandwich tomorrow instead. How about that? And you're like, well, now I kind of wanted a Big Mac today. That's what I paid for. Yeah, we don't have any of those. I'm sorry. But you can come back for your chicken sandwich tomorrow. Or we can give you store credit. You're like, but can you just give me my money back? So be persistent. Ask to talk to a supervisor. If you've booked a flight and they've canceled it and you haven't flown, you are entitled to get your money back. Don't accept anything less. Don't accept your credits. Don't accept those things. Get your money back if you haven't gone anywhere on the first leg of your flight. Now, before I get to the fifth worst trend for airlines and air travel in 2022, I want to check out some of the comments in the chat. Brandon Torres says that's an insult. It is an insult. It's totally like adding insult to injury, right? Your flight's canceled and you don't get your money back. Marge says, always bring your own food. Multiple airports have the same issues. Few options. It's very true. I'm thirsty. I need to drink something. What am I drinking today? So earlier I said I like apple juice. One of the things I also like to drink on airlines is ginger ale. Chris, what are you holding up? This is a Japanese ginger ale that has a kangaroo with boxing gloves on it and a picture of ginger. I saw this can at the local Japanese supermarket and said, I need to drink this on the live stream. How's it taste? It tastes like a ginger ale, but it has an awesome kangaroo with boxing gloves. Have you guys ever seen a can more awesome than a ginger ale with a kangaroo with boxing gloves and he's boxing the ginger? I think that's like getting the ginger flavor out of it to enjoy it. Points Traveler gives a great tip that if you can't get your money back, you can file a claim with the Department of Transportation or whatever government entity in your country of origin is to get your money back if they make it hard. Drinky Drinky likes the drink. Thank you, Drinky Drinky. I appreciate it. Samurai says, yeah, I had the same issue. I had to wait 3 months for a flight refund in 2020. That is a long time. Kathy says they prefer to give credits. And this page, Kathy says, Vancouver Airport is dead. It sure is. Captain Claus says, I connected to Dallas Airport last year, kind of crowded and cramped in there. Dallas Airport is just a crowded and cramped airport. It's really narrow. There's no places for people to go. I just think that's how Dallas feels even when it's not busy. Scott says some places at Detroit are still closed. Some food places did open back up, which was good. So it's good that there's some, yeah, and Kathy points out no airport shop. For sure, the duty-free stores and things like that, not that busy. Ace Ventura says you're going to come back soon to Vegas. Ace, I was just in Vegas in December, like 6 weeks ago. So if you haven't been seeing the Vegas videos I've been putting out, check them out. And Pat says, please don't spray the bug spray. It'll get circulated in the air. Well, maybe it'll kill whatever bugs in the air. Balut says, what's the radiation level of your drink? I don't know, but if I start glowing tonight from this, I will let you know. Okay, and Jordan asked, is Japan opening its borders? I would not expect them to open their borders anytime soon. If you ask me for my best guess for when Japan opens their borders, next year, 2023. That's my guesstimate. Because the other time they would try to open their borders would be for cherry blossoms here in April, and I don't see us getting from here to there, really. Okay, let's go on to the fifth worst trend in air travel in 2022. Mask altercations. Everybody's favorite subject are masks. And you hear about, these are the stories that the news loves to report on. Somebody, for whatever reason, got into an argument with somebody else about masks. Can you believe that in 2022 that people would get into arguments about masks? I know, but they do. So actually the U.S. Department of Transportation released some statistics about last year, 2021, that there were 5,800 complaints to the U.S. Department of Transportation about unruly behavior of airline passengers, most of which were related to masks. And I think we're going to see mask wearing as a requirement stick around for much of 2022. Fortunately, that means flights are going to be delayed. Because there'd be an argument and they'll have to deplane somebody. But sometimes it's not about not wearing masks. Sometimes it's about the type of mask that people are wearing. And this is an interesting story for a passenger who was kicked off a United flight because this passenger was actually wearing a mask that was too good. A passenger on United was wearing one of these, a VersaFlow, which is like a, Chem Bio Science Lab approved mask. But you know what? It didn't meet the definition of having loops behind the ears and being made of fabric. And they said, you can't wear that mask because it's too. And this person didn't have another mask. They're like, I should be able to wear this really good mask. Not so much. Now, this one goes the opposite way. You might say, what is it that is on that man's face? On this is a guy from Florida, and he was wearing women's underwear as his mask on about 20 flights before getting kicked off one of them and making the news. And he would go through the TSA checkpoint and ask them, is this mask okay? And they'd be like, yeah, look, it meets the definitions. It's made of cloth. It covers your ears. It covers your nose and mouth. So there you go. But eventually he did get kicked off and, of course, made the news. And his defense, I think that was actually what he was trying to do. He was trying to make a statement to say that these rules are absurd. And so he was going to do something absurd in response. Now, the U.S. TSA announced that they're going to be removing TSA PreCheck for people who have been kicked off flights for unruly behavior. And so wherever you fall on this mask issue, just know that if you're going to do what the Florida guy did, you might end up losing your TSA PreCheck if that's what you have. A side note for people who aren't familiar with TSA PreCheck, I love TSA PreCheck. It is the U.S. TSA, Transportation Security Agency's opt-in program where you pay them $80. You get in this program for 5 years. They do a little background check. They take your fingerprints, and then you go through the PreCheck security line where you don't have to take off your shoes. You don't have to take out your liquids. You don't have to take out your laptops, and you don't have to go through the nudoscope. Instead, you just go through a regular metal detector, which is really great, I find, for traveling on holiday type weekends when there's a lot of people who don't have TSA PreCheck, and then there's not many business travelers. It's business travelers that travel a lot. They're willing to pay $80 for this program, and so then it's a great time to just sail through the TSA PreCheck lines. All right. The sixth worst trend for air travel in 2022, we're going to be seeing more kiosks and less check-in agents. Now, the world is feeling this. There are less people that want to work anywhere. They want to work at hotels, that want to work at restaurants. And there's less people that the airlines have as check-in agents. And so in response, they're rolling out more kiosks and making more things automated for you to check in your luggage, for you to print your boarding pass. Now, if you follow this trend, these things started as ways to print your boarding pass. And, some airlines have made it that now you use these kiosks to print your baggage or luggage tags. Side note, I hate those things. I hate the kiosks that print the luggage tags. It just takes such a long time to peel off these stickers and put them on there. The ticket agents do it so much better than I ever would. And so I always try to go to a human, especially if I have some status with the airline. But I think the annoying trend that we're going to see in 2022 is being required to go to a kiosk to then allow you to go to a human. Today at airports, you'll see, here are the kiosks, here are the humans. If you know you need assistance, you can go to the human assistance line. But what we're starting to see is airlines implement, no. You need to go to the kiosk, and you can only go see the human if the kiosk tells you it can't help you, and then you need to go see a human. I already know I need to go see a human. Just let me do that and not make me talk to this machine over here. And the other thing that annoys me about kiosks is most of them are just not very well built. They're not user friendly. They take so much longer than going to see a gate agent. Frankly, they take so much longer than using the mobile app. If I have the choice to check in on the mobile app instead of at the kiosk, I am going to do it because the mobile apps usually just work better, have better development teams. The kiosks, when we flew Air Canada, both checking in the way there and the way back, we had to peck in our contact information. Here's my name, here's my email address, here's my phone number on this touchscreen thing. We pecked it in on the way there, and then it asks us for the same thing on the way back. Like, why doesn't it save that? Why does it make me type that in again? Just really sort of annoying behaviors of these kiosks. Okay, Natalie says on the live stream, I have had no problem with kiosks. Maybe you've gotten the good kiosks and I've gotten the bad kiosks. When we went into... we came back. So when we were coming back from Canada, we have global entry, which is, it's like TSA PreCheck, except it's for entering back into the US. And Vancouver is an airport where you can clear, if you're returning to the US from Vancouver, you clear customs in Vancouver. So you don't need to clear customs in the US. And there's all these global entry kiosks, and like half of them weren't working. I assume because the IT staff had the day off, or it's hard to get people to fix them or something like that. And Jay has that point. A lot of them don't work. Yeah, they don't work. They're off the screen. The touch screens don't work. And I think kiosks, if they're actually efficient and they're actively effective, it's not so bad, but they just aren't today. Marge says, I agree, Chris. I always have issues with tagging my own luggage. I'm glad I am not the only one. Drinky says, I've seen non-English speakers getting stuck at the kiosk for sure because they're not super clear. Alex hates them too. Brandon says kiosks are like turtles. And Big Italian Meatballs says, Toronto Pearson Airport automated almost all of its customs. Nobody understands how to use it and ends up being lost. I can see that, Big Italian Meatballs. I feel like Vancouver did the same thing. It was like automated coming in, and we went to some kiosk that completely didn't work, and then there's a minder of the kiosks, and she had to take us to like 3 different kiosks before we found one that was actually working. And I guess that in our case, it's because now to go into Vancouver, they randomly select people for COVID tests, and we were randomly selected for one. And I think the previous kiosks didn't know how to handle that or weren't set up for it. Drinky says, Chris, I wanted to tell you I purchased an Osprey Poco Plus after your review. Thank you so much. Drinky, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. I hope you and your traveling prince or princess really enjoys it in there. For people who don't know what that is, that's the baby carrying backpack that you see me often have the traveling princess with when we're out hiking around. And then speaking of global entry, Maya highly recommends it. I highly recommend it too if you're US based. Jordan points out if you have some premium credit cards, you can get it for free. Things like the Chase Sapphire Reserve, Amex Platinum, all do provide credits for those. Okay. The 7th worst trend for airlines in 2022 is that basic economy is lousy again. So many airlines like United, Delta, American Airlines introduced a few years back these fares called basic economy, which basically provided nothing along with them, and anything you wanted, like being able to bring a suitcase on board or check bags or assign a seat, you'd have to pay extra for. And of course, the airlines state that this is to give customers more choice and to save customers money, and it didn't really work out that way. It's really so that they could create, a $30 more fare class to charge people $30 more. The low-end tickets didn't get any cheaper. They just relabeled the low-end tickets basic economy and then created a tier $30 or $40 more. But one hallmark of basic economy was like no changes, no refunds, use it or lose it kind of thing because the fares are so cheap. But that changed during the pandemic because everything had to change, and airlines started saying, hey, it's okay to change your basic economy ticket. I know we said you couldn't, but we're going to be reasonable people. We'll let you change these. And in 2022, that's really no more. We're seeing most airlines re-implement their super restrictive policies on basic economy tickets. And with all of the international doors opening and closing at a moment's notice, I would not book any tickets that are not easily changeable or easily refundable or changeable with at least a small fee. Don't book anything that's like use it or lose it, because if you're going internationally, there's a good chance that something's going to happen and you might not actually be able to go when you thought you could. But in fact, basic economy is not just getting as bad as it used to be, it's actually becoming worse. Delta Airlines just announced that basic economy tickets no longer earn any miles. So you don't earn miles with these tickets with the airline, with the elite program anymore. Why? Delta did a study of the people who book basic economy tickets and said 70% of them aren't even members of SkyMiles. They don't have a SkyMiles number. So why are we awarding these frequent flyer miles to them or even making it an option when they don't use them? So, of course, I wonder, okay, well, the 70% of those people, you didn't give it to them anyway. Why do you have to remove it from the 30% who do, right? It doesn't seem like they're giving out a lot then, but this is all about trying to eke out the smallest possible margin. Natalie on the live stream says, oh, here, let me put the kangaroo back in frame. Kangaroo right there with the boxing glove. Natalie says, is that a baguette behind you? Yeah, I'm hungry. I just have this baguette behind it. I gotta eat this. This is my keyboard wrist rest. It's from Japan. It's a soft, squishy thing, and so it's really good on the wrists. It sits there right in front of my keyboard. So, yes, that is a baguette behind it. The traveling princess sometimes mistakes it for bread, and I see it's flat on the side, so I have to remind her it's not for eating. Kathy says, I was looking at flights from within the USA from Seattle to Vegas. I'll definitely be booking changeable or refundable tickets. That's a good plan, Kathy. Flying within the U.S., one of my recommendations for doing that is Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines is always really reasonable. You can change any ticket. If the fares go up, you have to pay more. You have to pay that new fare. But Southwest never has any change fees, particularly if you're going to Vegas. Southwest is a great option. Alaska Airlines out of Seattle usually has pretty reasonable change policies as well. Kevin says, I was planning to go to Paris. Obviously, that's not happening. Delta will not refund me. Instead, they will give me a credit, right? So, Kevin, just because they're closed doesn't mean that they give you a refund, right? It's if they cancel your flight, then they give you a refund. But, hey, if you book the ticket and the country hasn't opened or you just don't want to go, yeah, they're just going to give you a credit in that case. The 8th worst trend for airlines in 2022 is that flight shaming will continue. What is flight shaming? Well, at the start of the pandemic, it was people shaming people who were getting on planes, telling them they're spreading the pandemic around. Shame on you for getting on those airplanes. And as the pandemic fades, maybe we're going to have less you're spreading the virus shaming, but what we're going to have, I think, is environmental shaming. Shame on you for destroying the environment, for riding that plane. And this is actually a trend that we see in Europe. It's gone as far in Europe as various European governments have banned their government officials from taking flights that are shorter than like 2 hours or something like that. It varies on country and the EU and these sorts of things, but their perspective is if you can take a train and it's less than 5 hours, then you can't take the plane instead. Which a blanket policy like that, I don't know, sometimes you might only have 2 hours instead of the all day it takes you for that 5-hour trip. Train doesn't get there, train's on time. I mean, in Europe, the trains are a lot better than they're here in the U.S. It'd probably be a long time before we're hearing that in the U.S. And, people are going to say, hey, take the Amtrak. You're like, do you want me to get where I'm going today or this week? In that case, the flight might be the better option. But I think one of the things we're going to see with airlines, because of this focus on people shaming people for environmental reasons, is airlines focusing on sustainability initiatives. We're seeing, United Airlines say, oh, we're working on electric planes. And whether they actually implement them or not, we're certainly going to see more marketing from the airlines that talk about how the airlines are more green. At the very least, they'll they'll print more things on green paper because everybody knows that makes things more green. Grovel agrees with me. The rail system in the U.S. Is a lot slower. It is not an option for most people. The only place in the USA that rail is really an option, two places, I believe. One is the Northeast Corridor, which is effectively Washington, D.C., up through Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. That's a pretty good train line. It runs pretty quick. It's efficient. The other reasonable train line is the Pacific Surfliner up and down the California coast. That'll take you from San Diego to Los Angeles and then up in the Bay Area. You can take it all the way to Seattle, only if you've got a lot of time. But the section from Los Angeles to San Diego is really pretty because it runs along the beach. Anybody who's coming to the U.S. and wants to take trains, those are the two routes I recommend, and I recommend avoiding all of them. So I think that answers Ace Ventura's question. Best destination, Los Angeles to San Diego, I think, is the best route and super scenic as it runs along the beach. Larry must have missed earlier when I said I'm drinking a Japanese ginger ale with a kangaroo who's boxing the ginger right there. Michael says, no train to Hawaii. That would be hard to do, but Hawaii is building a train on Oahu. If you've been there anytime recently, lately, you'll see this train. It'll take you from the airport to the Ala Moana Center, not quite to Waikiki, but that'll be nice to get past a lot of traffic and then maybe take a bus or a taxi from the Ala Moana Center into Waikiki. Tony kindly reminds people, hey, if you've not hit the like button yet, I would really appreciate it. There's 229 people on and 59 likes. If you've not hit the like button, it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm, and every like that you do in this video helps to provide premium bamboo to the Yellow Productions crew back there, so they really need their bamboo, so please make sure to help out the crew in the back. The ninth trend that we're going to see in 2022 are entry restrictions that change on a moment's notice. When, this pandemic first started, we would do like shutdowns, say like, in 2 weeks, we're not going to allow in people from this country, or in 2 weeks, we're not going to do this. Now we're seeing governments say things like, at 10 a.m., they're announcing that at noon, no flights from these countries. There was, I think it was one European country, Netherlands, I think, right, had some flights coming in from South Africa, and they were like mid-air, they were considering, I think we should tell those flights to turn back because they were closing their borders to South Africa because of the spread of Omicron. So that may very well happen to you. So if you're doing like a multi-country itinerary, be flexible, be prepared to go other places. I would I would recommend to you to consider be flexible wherever you're going. If you've got your heart set on France and France closes and you've already taken time off work, pick a different destination. Be like, well, I've never been to Argentina. They're open. Let me go check that out. I think that's what we'll need to be as travelers in 2022 to have a good time. Don't have your heart just set on one, but have a plan B if something like that does happen. Because, it might happen like the day before you go, and so it's worthwhile maybe to have that plan B in mind. And by the way, for everybody who hit that like button, thank you very much. We're up from 59 to 102, so thank you for the 40 extra likes. The 10th worst trend in air travel in 2022. And by the way, this isn't the last trend, because I've got 5 good trends to talk about after this, so that Chris isn't entirely negative all the time. The 10th worst trend are ghost flights. Now, it's funny because number 8, I talked about flight shaming and sustainability and airlines becoming more sustainable. What's a ghost flight? It's the opposite of that. So ghost flights are when airlines operate flights that basically have nobody on them. And they've been doing it through 2021. They're going to continue through 2022. Chris, why would airlines operate flights that don't have anybody on them? Well, it's funny because where they're doing this the most is in the European Union, because the European Union, which theoretically is the most environmentally friendly with the rules about, government officials not being able to take flights that are shorter than this or longer than this, also has rules about airlines having to fly a certain route a certain percentage of the time that it's scheduled, or they will take those slots away from them and allocate them to other airlines. So, for example, if an airline has, noon to depart London Heathrow and get to Paris at 1, well, that airline, by the EU rules, needs to fly that flight 80% of the time, or their slots get taken away. Now, for the pandemic, the EU has relaxed that restriction to 50% of the time, but there's still many of these routes that there aren't that many people flying them, and so airlines are flying planes that don't have anybody on them simply that they can meet these government targets so that they can keep their slots. Specifically, Brussels Airlines has stated that this quarter for them, these 3 months, plans to fly 3,000 empty or nearly empty flights just so that they can keep their slots. A much bigger airline, Lufthansa, Europe's like super big carrier, said they flew last year 18,000 flights that they would have otherwise canceled due to a lack of demand just to keep their slots. So I think that's kind of crazy talk. But hey, if you get on one of those flights, you'll have the whole plane to yourself. So that might be nice if it's you and you're on one of those flights. Drinky Drink says, I took a flight once to Tokyo. There are 5 passengers. That's pretty much like a ghost flight. Was that a new flight, or Drinky? Do you know what the circumstances were behind nobody being on that flight? Okay. Samurai says, the worst thing for me, Chris, flying into Vancouver Airport, it's disappointing for police to point out certain travelers to check their laptops. Hopefully you didn't go through this. I didn't have that issue in Vancouver, though, as someone who travels with a lot of camera equipment. I do often get my camera equipment checked and inspected and all that stuff. It was super funny when I was recently flying back. When I was flying back from San Jose Airport on Southwest, I got selected for secondary screening, and the dude swabbing my stuff, and the other TSA agent that's there comes over and says, Yellow Productions, I love your channel. And then there was like a conversation that ensued amongst the TSA agents about, what's Yellow Productions? This channel's great. So that was great to see some TSA agents that are fellow explorers as well. We have Mark from Walter's World in the house. Welcome, Mark from Walter's World. Thanks for dropping by the live stream today. Super good to see you. And Mark pointed out earlier, being flexible and having a plan B, always a good idea. Always a good idea in these times. And I really say that travel, sometimes it's less about the destination and it's more about the journey. And so in that journey, be flexible. Okay. So let me now share with you some positive trends for travel in 2022. And the first positive trend for travel in 2022, and here I'm gonna put up these numbers for the positive ones. The first positive trend for air travel in 2022 is there's lots of award availability. If you are someone who likes to redeem miles or points for your flights, you're going to see lots of tickets and seats that you can redeem miles and points for, particularly in premium business first class type cabins. Why? Because the people that usually bought those business class tickets are people that were traveling for business, and they're not traveling right now. And so you can get pretty good deals on those things. The other thing to look at when you do that, and sometimes people say like, well, Chris, I still can't find any. I've looked at LAX, I'm going to Paris, and there just aren't any. And I've got a whole video about tips for booking award tickets, but simply put, look at other airlines, look at other airports, look, maybe you like to fly United, but take a look at some of the European carriers, take a look at some of the Asian carriers, and you'll likely find a lot of award availability there too. The second good trend in air travel in 2022 is earning status with the airline again based on spend. This is back again, and it's something the airlines, I guess they've gone, ebbs and flows on this, where when these rewards programs were conceived, the idea was that you fly a certain amount with the airline and then you get some elite status with them. And then airlines introduced their credit cards, and they realized, hey, this credit card business gets us a lot of money. And so then airlines were allowing passengers who spent money on the credit cards to be able to earn elite status. And then, maybe 5 years ago, let's say, or even 10 years ago, when the airline business was doing really great, they said, no, we don't care about spending on credit cards. Elite status is only about how many miles you flew with us or how much you spent directly on tickets, but not ancillary spending. But American Airlines has actually just kind of rebranded their whole program. They're no longer calling them like miles. They're now calling them loyalty points. And if you are trying to earn American Airlines elite status, you can now earn loyalty points based on things like how much you've spent on your American Airlines credit cards, how much you've spent through the Advantage shopping portal, how much you've spent through Advantage dining, shopping at their dining partners. And they've had some really good deals. Like if you signed up, so they got this website called Simply Miles, which is American Airlines like offer thing. Like you can sign up for offers, you can get a number of loyalty points. They had a deal where if you signed up for the Motley Fool, which is like an investing service, you would get 7,900 loyalty points, which is like almost a third of the way there of getting you to gold, 30,000 loyalty points. I simply say this to say that if you want to earn status on an airline and you don't feel you're going to fly a lot, but you might spend a lot on credit cards or other things, take a look at the American Airlines program for this year. I also think outside of American Airlines, we're going to see a lot of status accelerator programs where you'll be able to earn status for flying less than you usually would, just because people aren't flying as much as the airlines perhaps predicted they would. Okay. The third best trend in air travel in 2022 is the airlines are repositioning their flights to sun and sand destinations to focus on leisure travel, which for most of us that are probably here, that's a good thing, because most of us that are here like to travel for leisure. Maybe some of us travel for business too, but we like to travel for leisure. Why are the airlines doing this? Because nobody's traveling for business, and they want people to be on their planes, and so we're seeing airlines reposition their flights to a lot of destinations like Hawaii, a lot of destinations on the California coast, lots of flights going to Florida. The airlines are seeing a lot of demand for Europe in the summer of 2022. So a lot of airlines are sending more flights over to Europe. The place we're not really going to see recover this year, in my opinion, is Japan. We're not seeing the airlines put their planes there. We're seeing airlines take their planes away from Asia, Japan, China, Thailand. That whole region is going to have a lot less flights, a lot less choices, and maybe not even be open until next year. The fourth good trend for air travel in 2022 is the return of the Airbus A380. This plane right here, the double-decker plane, it's making a comeback. Pretty much every airline universally grounded these things at the beginning of the pandemic because how are they going to get enough people to fill up a double-decker plane? But in particular, Qantas is bringing back their A380. They're going to be bringing it back on the routes from Sydney to LAX, and they're going to be running it from Sydney to Singapore this year. Qantas was not intending to restart the A380s until 2023, but Australia's letting their people go out of the country. There's more demand to do it, and because of the quarantine restrictions for airline crew that now have to sit around for a while, a lot of airlines are actually finding these planes more efficient because they don't have the crew to operate the smaller planes. And so instead of running daily flights, they'll run them every 2 or 3 days, and they'll run a big plane instead of the small plane. Big Italian Meatballs asked, what's the little device that's changing RGB colors on my desk? That back there, that is the wireless base station for my mouse. The base station, you can see there, it changes the same color as this does. So that's what that's for. The The fifth best trend for airlines in 2022 is that in-flight entertainment is making a comeback. And it remains free. This is in a world of hotels charging more fees, airlines charging more fees, this is one thing that airlines have realized needs to be free, and they're really seeing in-flight entertainment as a competitive advantage. I really like this because a few years back, airlines were ripping out their in-flight entertainment. They're like, in-flight entertainment is too expensive. Passengers don't want it. Passengers would prefer to bring their personal devices like their iPad or their phone, connect to Wi-Fi, and just stream movies to them. No, not really. Because my phone has a small screen, my iPad battery dies. I kind of like the in-flight entertainment. I like it's in my seat. I like that it's easy to use. And so we're seeing more airlines install in-flight entertainment. Delta Airlines reports that 90% of Delta's nearly 800 planes now have screens on their seat backs. United Airlines has announced that on their new 737 MAX 8 jets, they're going to have support for Bluetooth headphones. Have you ever brought your Bluetooth headphones and wish you could listen to the in-flight entertainment? You're going to be able to do that on the new United planes. And then finally, the other big American carrier, American Airlines, on their Airbus 321 and Boeing 787 in 2023, they're going to be installing 4K screens, so super high resolution, and USB-C charging ports, right? A lot of us on our phones have the USB-C ports, the new USB feature, so they're starting to put them in there. Now, I said I would mention 5 positive trends. I got a 6th trend for you, and this is more for like airline aviation geeks, like about the industry. So as I was reading up on what the trends are in airlines, one of the things I uncovered over and over again, and by the way, as a computer science geek, right, a background, I'm like, oh, that's really sort of interesting, is the notion of customer centricity and data centricity. Chris, what does that all mean? Well, right now, basically what the airline tracks for you in the system is this thing they call a PNR, a passenger number record, or a locator number, or a booking reference number. And what they want to do is they want to start personalizing your trip so that when you sit down on the plane and you pull up your in-flight entertainment, it recognizes you. It says, "Hi, Chris. On the last flight, you were watching Return of the Jedi, and you got an hour through it. Would you like to pick up where you left off?" What airlines want to be able to do is they want to be able to know what your flights are. Maybe you booked a hotel with them, and then if your flight's delayed or canceled or moved a different day, to be able to update your hotel bookings based upon what happens in your flight journey. Now, I think airlines, the big carriers, are a long way off on this because that's a lot of like advanced AI and analytics to do that. But it doesn't have to be all about tech. When my mom and I flew to Japan a few years back, we had some issues that we couldn't make it into Tokyo that night, and Japan Airlines actually called our hotel in central Tokyo, the Courtyard Marriott, Tokyo Station, said, "Hi, this is Japan Airlines calling. I'm calling on behalf of your guest, Chris Rainey. Due to circumstances beyond his control, he's not going to be able to make it into Tokyo tonight. Can you just adjust his reservation, not charge him a cancellation fee, and just move his reservation to tomorrow? We're going to book him into a hotel here at the airport tonight." Sure enough, they did. It was very nice to have Japan Airlines do that because I think, just as Joe Schmo calling the hotel, they're like, who's to say that's the case? But I would love to see more airlines really try to figure out more things to connect our journeys all together.
Fellow explorers, it is now Q&A time. If you've got a question, I've got an answer.
All right, fellow explorers, now it's time to answer Q&A. If you asked a question before and I didn't get to it, ask it again. Make sure you put a question mark behind them because that's what I'll be looking for as I answer these questions. And I always give away a Yellow Productions t-shirt on these live streams, and so I'm going to be doing that too. Points Traveler says, do you think upgrading to first class on U.S. carriers is worth the price? It depends how much it costs. I was flying back one of my trips from Hawaii, and the upgrade to first class was $300 more. From economy to first class, that was a no-brainer in my mind to pay $300 more to upgrade to first class on a 6-hour-long flight. would I pay $20,000 in first class on an American carrier? Probably not. Would I pay $20,000 for first class on an air carrier? No, I don't roll that much. When I book in premium cabins, business, first class, I'm generally doing it on miles and points. Kopitar says, what else did you do in San Jose besides Japantown, and why didn't you bring Topher with you? Kopitar, it was a short trip, actually, to explore some stuff in California's Central Valley that I think we're actually going to make some videos on, do here in February. So it's kind of like a scouting trip for a future trip that we're doing, and that's why Topher wasn't there on that trip, because just a quick, like, one night there and back sort of thing. Points Traveler says, what do you think about the points guy suing American Airlines? Yeah, well, because American Airlines sued him first, and so he's suing them back, or he heard American Airlines was going to sue him, so he preemptively sued them. If you haven't followed this story, the Points Guy provides a website that people can use to aggregate all of their frequent flyer information so that you can see how many miles and points you have in various programs, when they're going to expire. And American Airlines sued the Points Guy, saying that we're not going to allow you to use our logo, you're breaching the security of our website. I think it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So, I mean, the accusations that American Airlines has made against the Points Guy are, from a computer science perspective, like, honestly, accusations from people who completely don't understand what they're talking about, breaching the security of the American Airlines servers. People like myself might sign up there and voluntarily say, Points Guy, here's my information. Please log in there for me and help me aggregate all that stuff. I hope Points Guy prevails in this lawsuit, because frankly, it'll be good for all of us to be able to get our data out of these little sites. Right? The American goal is like, it's our data. We don't want anybody else to have it. It's about me. I should be able to put my data about me wherever I want to. Natalie says, is there any way to get a non-refundable flight refunded, especially now with COVID? Unless they cancel your flight, you're pretty much out of luck. For small regional airports, how early should you arrive? SCESSSJF. I'm sorry, I don't know those acronyms, but I would say, depending upon how big or small there's some that are so tiny that they only bring out like TSA security when the flight comes and goes, and that's the case. Like, you can get there 40 minutes before the flight because they just get everybody through security. When I fly out of Orange County or things like that, I just get there an hour before. So for small airports, I'd recommend an hour before, and I think you're good. Samurai says, what is the most uncomfortable seat location on any airline for you? The last row by the bathroom, it's like it doesn't recline all the way. It smells from the bathroom. So I think the worst seat is the last row aisle seat by the bathroom, because that's also everybody like rubs up against your elbow as they're trying to get to the bathroom. Kopitar says, will lounges ever get food again, or will they keep using COVID as an excuse to provide half service at full price? I believe they will get hot food again, but I believe they are, as you say, currently using COVID as an excuse to provide half service at full price. Ace Ventura says, do you think that the fly company from LA to Vegas is important due to short trips? Ace, when I go from the LA area to Vegas, I drive, because I get delayed on a flight. It's totally not worth it. It's a 4-hour drive for me, so I just drive when I go to Vegas. Barry asks, have you done a video about Toronto? Not yet, but we'd like to. The Uniplex says, where is your next trip to? Tentatively, because we haven't finalized all the plans for it, but tentatively, our next trip will be to the California Central Valley. We're thinking about going up there. There are these, not cherry blossoms, but almond blossoms, if you're not familiar. The California Central Valley grows like 90% of the USA's almonds, and so we want to go check out the almond blossoms. Jordan says, why do hotels charge resort fees? I have a whole video about resort fees, but briefly, the reason why hotels charge resort fees is because they want their room rates to seem cheaper than their competitors, because the ways a lot of people look for hotels right now is they go to Expedia, they go to Kayak, they go to hotels.com, they search for destination, they sort by lowest price. Typically when that's done, these search engines display just the room rate in that list and not the added in resort fees. And so if a hotel can have an artificially low, call it $14 room rate, but a $50 resort fee later, then their hotel shows up better in the search results. And the hotels that don't do it end up finding that, well, everybody else does it, so I got to do it too, because otherwise I just end up so far down this list. It's like this vicious cycle that keeps on going. Justin says, do I think I'll take the hyper train from Vegas to LA? I will totally take the hyper train. Crystal says, any more Colorado videos planned? We don't have any immediate trips to Colorado, Crystals and Crypto, but I'd expect us back there in at least a couple years. Probably doesn't help you anytime in the near future, though.
Yes, it's the time you've been waiting for. It's time for the giveaway.
Okay, fellow explorers, it is time for the giveaway. And if you answer this question correctly, you will win a Yellow Productions t-shirt with the Yellow Productions crew logo shipped to you anywhere in the world. And my question for you is, this drink that I have over here that I'll pull back out on camera in a moment, what animal is on that can? If you can answer that question correctly, you'll win a Yellow Productions crew shirt. And if you don't win a Yellow Productions crew shirt, but you want to pick one up for yourself, but you want to pick up a mug, maybe you want to pick up a Yellow Productions beanie, you can head over to shop.yellow-productions.com and you can get all the fancy Yellow Productions merch. And with this new shop that I've got, I send everybody who buys something a personalized video message. Thank you for checking out the shop. And if you're wondering when is the next live stream, I'm sorry I wasn't able to do one last week, but if you want to get in on the notifications, head over to update.yellow-productions.com, get on the Yellow Productions mailing list, and you will be the first one to know before anybody else does. Well, maybe OC Girl will know before you do, but you will know right after she does. Now, the most impressive thing here...
And now we have a winner chicken dinner.
About this answer is the first person to get the right answer typed this: kangaroo with gloves hitting ginger, Japanese ginger ale. Heaven knows, I have to assume you thought I would ask that as a question and you typed the whole thing out and were ready to paste it. However you did that, congratulations, you're in my head, you're in my mind, and if you are, get out of there. But congratulations, you win the Yellow Productions crew shirt. Send me an email to chris@yellow-productions.com. You'll also find the link to that in the description below, and I will get that headed right out to you. Name, address, size. That's what I need. Now, if you enjoyed Chris being negative on this video about the worst air travel trends and you didn't see the video I did 2 weeks ago about the worst hotel trends, well, if you're watching the archive, I'm going to link it up here someplace, put a link in the description. But when you're done here with the live stream, you can check that out too. Worst hotel trends in 2022. Well, fellow explorers, if you have some other worst trends or some other ideas for things you want to hear me complain about in the future, let me know as well. I'm always looking for new ideas of future live streams to do. As usual, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you in the next video.